Hello, everybody. Dave Neal here, stand-up comic, host of Bachelor in Paradise, a guy's review. We've got a great interview coming your way. I just chatted with Susanna. She's the creator of the Instagram and TikTok account Bachelor Data. She does statistical analysis of all things Bachelor Nation, from following to unfollowing on Instagram of different contestants, to how much screen time they're getting on a per episode basis. Literally, she's doing the Lord's work. You're gonna love this conversation. Numbers tell a story, and you're gonna love hers. Also, I'm in New York City Friday and tonight and Sunday night. If you want to come to a show tonight, 10 p.m. Brooklyn, and 8 p.m. Brooklyn on Sunday, and a 5:30 p.m. show if you are an early bird in East Village on Sunday afternoon. So tons coming your way. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at DNeals for updates on all the show information. Like this video. Don't forget to subscribe for future content. And now, without further ado, enjoy my conversation with Susanna. Ladies and gentlemen, so excited today to talk to Susanna. How are you? Susanna from Bachelor Data on Instagram and TikTok. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here.
Of course. Now, I wanted to talk to you for a while, and we've kind of just waited for the right moment. But Monday was Massacre Monday, the great unfollowing. So I want to hear all about what you're doing with Bachelor Data. But was this a wild ride to see the great unfollowing of Bachelor Nation from contestants this week?
It was wild. So I watched live on the East Coast, and the second that it happened, I was like, wait, are we actually getting meta and talking about Instagram finally and screen time? And in the moment, I was like, wait, nobody's talked about screen time this way. And then my messages just started blowing up of people being like, did you see that? And then I think it was pretty instantaneous after that conversation that we just started to see Brendan's numbers just tank, and I've never seen anything like that.
So he started at like 348 and he's down to under 200. He's probably more than that. He's lost a ton, and I'm sure by the time this airs on Friday it'll be even more. What's more surprising to me though is Natasha goes from 78 to over 300,000 Instagram followers. This is the modern day lottery ticket for people. This is equity. This is money in their pockets.
Yeah, it really is. So Brendan right now, it's Wednesday. He has lost 74,000 followers at this point. But meanwhile, Natasha has gained 178,000 followers just since Monday, which is insane. And I think a lot of people are like, okay, well, Instagram, like they'll just do ads. But it's like, when you gain this many followers, it really is a massive boost to your income.
Oh, yeah. And we talked about it, or at least I listened to Jason Tartick's podcast, which you got to get on that podcast because you with all of your analytics would be so great over there. But his podcast, Trading Secrets, it kind of equates to like $1 a year per follower if you're playing the numbers right. So if you have 1 million followers on Instagram, you can expect to make upwards of that much money if you're doing the game right. So it's great for her that she's made this sort of leap, and it's great that we're actually able to quantify it now. So I want to get into how you got started and all of that, but I want to tell you, when I first heard of you was when you started quantifying screen time. Now, there was always this thing about like, oh, we're pledging to have inclusivity and diversity, and then it's like, well, but what's the screen time showing? And you're actually clipping out, what's your process of analyzing and quantifying screen time? Are you literally just doing it old-fashioned?
Yeah, so there were a few ways around it, and this is something that we really wanted to start to quantify. We started back it was Tayshia's first episode, was our first time of really trying to do something around it, and it literally is a start and stop, and we call it featured screen time because it's not just about who's on the screen. So think about when they're all sitting on the couch, and there's 20 people sitting on the couch. I don't want to know that that's counted towards screen time. I want to know when there's somebody on our screen that we are paying attention to. So it's called featured screen time. And basically we have a spreadsheet open and we start and stop. We buy it on Amazon Video. So we have the same timestamps between myself and the person who helps me. And we literally start and stop at any time the focus of who's on the screen changes. And if it sounds like it's a lot, it is. It's a nightmare to do every week, especially these double weeks. But yeah, we have like upwards to like 600 to sometimes 800 segments per show.
Oh my gosh. Now, I use the term the Lord's work very casually here, but you are literally doing the Lord's work. This is, an incredible, but how, now there must be some sort of room for either error or bias when, say, like someone like Justin, he wasn't saying anything, but the camera would like zoom to him with some weird facial recognition like he was in, the show The Office. So do you count that? Like, how do you weigh that type of like being featured into it all?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, we have to check our bias whenever we are doing this, especially because like we are humans. We also watch the show. We also have people that we enjoy watching. And then we have people that we don't really care for their screen time, So it's important for us to keep that in check, that we aren't trying to give somebody or take time away from anybody. But basically what we try to do is in that moment, we think of, all right, everybody who's watching, who's sitting down right now, where is the focus of the majority of the people? And if it's something like that, where they pan over a lot, like Natasha during all of her segments around Brendan and Piper, and it's like you hear Brendan and Piper in the background talking, but they're really looking at Natasha, that would go towards Natasha, especially because that storyline is really driven around Natasha being hurt in that moment. So those are the types of decisions and how we try to make it. But whenever it's like a one-on-one date, those are the worst because the screen time goes back and forth, like sometimes 2 seconds on one person. So it's literally a start, stop, start, stop.
Wow.
Nonstop.
This sounds incredible. And then we get to just like watch your Instagrams and be like, oh, cool. A lot of work goes into that. Now they say what invention is, what's the saying? Necessity is the mother of invention, Plato. So clearly there was a need for this niche within Bachelor Nation. Now, obviously I've made my bones just covering the most random, more entertainment, whatever the thing is of the day, we'll just gear down and cover it. What got you into the niche here, and how did that seed get planted?
So basically, when I became a technology director, I was getting thrown so many spreadsheets, and I work in education. If you don't know that already, K-12 education, and I was getting thrown so many spreadsheets and I had no idea how to use them. I'd been promoted to this position that I felt like my shoes, was bigger shoes than I was ready to fill. And I tried to learn on YouTube. It was just like boring, monotone YouTube videos on how to use Excel. So I just decided to go down a different route. I started to collect Instagram follower accounts because at the time it was a huge conversation on the Bachelor subreddit. And I used to read about it and I was like, well, why don't I start collecting follower counts to see what happens on the show? And I have fun data to play with instead of like these boring videos on YouTube. And I started posting about it on Reddit. And then just before the world shut down, I started posting about it on Instagram to try to really push myself a little bit more around data visualization. And I started that account like 3 weeks before the world shut down. So I did, I think, like 5 posts and then didn't touch it again until Claire's season. But basically what I found was, this was supposed to be like a short-term project just to learn how to use Excel. And every time I posted about it, it just gained so much traction and conversation. And it just kept leading to more questions. So when people started looking at Instagram followers, the topic of, okay, screen time and how is that impacting it came up. And basically what I've learned through this all is every facet of this world thrives when you look at data. If it's education, if it's obviously like finance, accounting, everybody thinks like data, right? But there are people that DM me and they're like, I have a hobby around knitting and you have to see the stuff I'm doing with data. And I'm like, how do you find data in knitting? And it's everywhere.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's really just like, when people talk about this show, to have a data point to ground your conversation in is something that hasn't happened up until recently. So being able to provide that data for those conversations, be it something a little bit more intense, like, what happened with Chris Harrison, or like this Monday where it's like, oh, they're here for the wrong reasons. They're talking about Instagram. And it's like, it's great to just have data in those conversations.
This Monday felt like when the pirate ship is sinking and they're just throwing treasure chests off it was like, and we're watching it live I did 5 or 6 hours of live streaming. So we're having fun with it. Oh my gosh, I'm refreshing things. And everyone's like, go to Bachelor Data's page. We're going to your page. I'm kicking things off. Make some more coffee. We're having a whole thing about it. There's something reptilian in our brains about growth, from the pyramids, the golden proportion, the golden number, to when I lived in New York City. Every every week you would see one new layer of the Freedom Tower being built. You'd see it right down the street, and every week you go, oh, progress, growth, numbers. Baseball got into Moneyball, which was the statistical analysis. It used to be in baseball, you'd be like, oh, like that guy looks like he can hit the ball. Now it's like, no, statistically his on-base percentage is this, and people are understanding that numbers can be derived from everything, and you're literally bringing numbers into a game where it's always been reactionary, where like, we hate so-and-so, and now it's like, well, according to the percentage of screen time, and it's just so fascinating that we can use your numbers that you're creating out of a what previously people would say is a non-quantifiable thing. I mean, it used to just be like percentage of white contestants versus not white. That was literally as far as like, journalists would go when they talked about it. So I totally think for you to come up with this and then understand the thirst that people have for it all. And I think what happens though is this, and I always love to bring something controversial into the topic, but I'd love to talk about women in STEM fields. Now, of course, science, tech, engineering, and math, women have less of a representation, and The Bachelor, at least in my audience, is 95% women. I was talking to my fiance about math because she hates math. And I go, what was it? I was like, because I firmly believe these are all like societal things and biases. And she goes, yeah, our teacher used to make us stand up there and do speed math. She's a nice, quiet introvert. She'd have to do speed math against someone. It would shamed her in front of the class. And it was just like, at some point, people just mute out numbers. They go, this is I don't want to know. I don't want to look at my checking account, my credit card. I don't want to know the APR. But sunlight's the greatest disinfectant. So what you're doing here is bringing a friendly approach to numbers. And I'm assuming that's probably you tell me, was that one of the bigger responses you were getting from people like, oh, math can be fun?
Yeah. And that's the goal. So when I moved to Instagram, the goal was like, nobody likes looking at a spreadsheet, right? I mean, you can make a most beautiful spreadsheet, but nobody can just look at a set of numbers and be like, I mean, like even me, like I'm looking at my spreadsheet and like, I have to pull my formulas to figure out how much Brennan has lost followers, because I am not a person who can do mental math. Like it doesn't come naturally to me. But the goal of data visualization in general, like not just with Bachelor data, is to be able to tell really good stories with whatever you're trying to show people. And there's a lot of power in being able to do that, regardless of what sector you're in. Just being able to show something in an easy to understand way, be it like a PowerPoint slide. It doesn't even have to have data. It really helps you tell stories, which, as we are all learning in society, being able to tell stories is what makes us human and really gives us the advantage in whatever we're trying to do. So the goal of Bachelor data is to not only make it fun. I mean, if you look at my Instagram feed, it is a literal like color explosion, like color vomit all over it, and of just like pinks and purples. And like, obviously, like I'm a girl, and that's not what my data visualization looks like at work, but this is my fun space to cater towards other women who also watch this show and show data visualization in a fun way. And it's, people are still, they understand the data. They're able to, talk about it in this fun aspect. So I hope people realize that it can rub off in other areas. And just like me, like I was in this, or I still am in this field where I had to do a lot of data analysis in my job. You can learn it in a fun way and not by like boring monotone people on YouTube talking about finance, which like finance is cool and all, but like not for everybody. It can be really fun. And like Excel is not that scary. Like once you get somebody who's a little more fun talking about it.
Yeah. Well, look, I think whenever anyone has a passion for something, you can make anything interesting. If someone wants to explain to me how they make root beer, if they really love root beer, I'm like, I'm all in. I want to hear about it. Math just becomes complicated for people. But you're right. When you bring the visualization into it, you then become a storyteller. And by adding and I've had to experiment with this with my own thumbnails. Like, how do I get someone to click on my video versus someone else? How do I get someone to stop dead in their tracks scrolling Instagram, which is nonstop, and look at this graph that I've made, and how do they see that story? And it's almost like by niching down and going to very specific content, because with math, you can't just, you got to be very specific with what you're either what your variables are, like, you know, with regards of what you're talking about, that you can really begin to tell a story about how things performed this year versus last year. But so, and again, I know I'm throwing this on you, and we don't have like real numbers here, but women get more degrees than men. Women get more degrees, but in computer science, they only get 14% of the degrees. In math, they get 41%. So some people say it's a lack of mentors. Do you see yourself as a mentor that's out there showing people like, hey, you can do this. This isn't rocket science. I mean, it's math, but like, do you see yourself as a mentor now?
I hope so. I mean, I'm an educator, so I was an elementary teacher first, so I enjoy sharing knowledge and skills with people. But I just really hope this project just ends up showing people that like anybody can do this, guys. I am not a person who thrives in math either, but like Excel is formulas. It's like functions that like do the math for you, so you don't have to do it yourself. And the goal is to create a visualization that doesn't require people to do math. But I mean, it is tough. So especially working in education, especially in technology, there's not a ton of women, even in my own field. I think as far as being out here in Massachusetts, being a technology director, there are a lot more men that are technology directors, and especially women, and then women who are on top of that as young as I am. But I think it's just, I think it is a lot of bias around what we are grown when we're growing up, kind of what we're told. You know, I would talk a lot with parents when I was a teacher, and, you know, a lot of them would really instill, like I had a set of twins that they would be like, the mom would be like, oh no, so-and-so, like to the daughter, and be like, oh no, it's okay. Like I wasn't good at math either. And then would immediately turn to the twin that was the boy and be like, oh no, he's great at math. And it was like, what are we instead? Like everybody's capable at being good at math. It's just a matter of, you know, it's like reading. Like you have to find the right book. You have to find the right topic. And for me, it was The Bachelor. I could not care less at the time about working with data around education and especially state testing. Like it's not a fun topic in education. And having something fun like The Bachelor, as you can see, like there's a lot of great math and stories to tell with the data. And I have learned things that have made me now an expert with Excel. And I truly believe everybody's capable of doing it. And on top of that, I think the best skill that you can learn in your job is Excel. Now
you got a boyfriend, right?
I do.
Okay, so I saw that from your Instagram stories. I'm sure my fiance, I'll start talking to her about things, and I can see her eyes glaze over. I'll be like, oh, so-and-so, and she's just like, I don't care. Does he have to deal with a sort of obsessiveness? I mean, you're like, things are going well. You get a dopamine rush. You're up to 80,000 Instagram followers. Like, what does he think about all of this?
He's always been really supportive. I think he won't watch an episode with me. Okay. He does not care for it, but he is my biggest cheerleader. Like he hypes me. I mean, yesterday I was doing stories because there were so many new people that were asking me all these questions about my page and how we do all the data stuff, that I was doing this Q&A, and then just suddenly he walks in with a 75K balloon surprising me because I hit 75K. So he's really excited around it. He can't keep up with storylines around the show. Like when I am frustrated during Matt's season about Queen Victoria, he's like, oh, that's the one who showed up with the crown, right? Oh yeah, we don't like her. We don't like her either.
First of all, he's a smart man for getting you balloons. Women love balloons. The bigger, the better. Yes. Good for you. That's so great. And okay, so what was the point then? Because obviously with Instagram, you get a new following, you get a bump. Where did you see that bump where you go, oh, maybe there's like some money to be made? Of course, we'll talk about your academy you've created, but do you remember that moment where you were like, oh, this is something bigger?
I think it really came more from necessity. It was once we started collecting the screen time, and I actually developed tendonitis from working so much. I mean, luckily when I started collecting screen time, especially here in Boston, we were all taking the pandemic really seriously. Like we weren't going out. We just hung out with our downstairs neighbor. So I didn't have a ton to do, but then when the world started reopening and, work was really picking up, I was like, I need a way to bring in some money so I can have somebody help me continue to grow this project, because it was really getting popular. But I really think Matt's season is really when things started to take off for the account.
Now, I'm a big believer in like divine compensation. Marianne Williamson's book, The Law of Divine Compensation. If people enjoy what you're doing, let the money flow in, whether it's a Venmo, whether it's your Patreon, whatever it may be. But I'm from New England, and I understand the guilt I have for being like, I'm not deserving. So, do you see a world where this becomes full time? And if so, when does that happen?
I think it's a complicated question because as like we've been able to grow where money comes in through, I just keep wanting to spread it back out to continue to grow what we're doing and expanding. We're wanting to go to new shows soon. But I really think what I'm trying to focus on right now, aside from continuing to grow what we're providing with data and go to other TV shows, is really expanding the opportunities for learning that I've created for myself to other people. Especially I'm an educator. So obviously I love showing people how to do things in a way that is easy to understand for them. I think there's just not enough opportunities out there to learn things within STEM from other women in a topic that's as non-stressful as The Bachelor. I mean, what else can you have more fun with around learning than The Bachelor?
Yeah,
oh, wait.
I agree. It's a great, it's like for me, like I don't love The Bachelor. I love talking about things. I love talking about human conditions and making fun of things. And it just happens to be the show that has the most eyeballs. So that's why we're here. So Michelle Young's season is coming up. She's actually just finishing up her season now. She's a teacher in Minnesota. I've had this sort of hypothetical conversation with people where I go, there's no way Michelle's going to remain being a teacher. I mean, at her best, she has 60 to 80 students versus potentially 1 million followers where she can spread her message to a much greater audience there. Do you ever think about that, being able to connect with someone one-on-one versus what you have, which you could literally change the landscape for math and people getting into it in such a bigger level?
Yeah, I mean, why not both? Doing both right now. It is a little rough on these weeks where there are 2 episodes and I am not one of the lucky ones who get screeners ahead of time. But I feel like it, right, especially right now, it's like the symbiotic relationship where like I am really thriving right now in all the work I'm doing around Bachelor data. And it is like filling my bucket, not to sound too much like a teacher. But then it's really helping me in my day job. So it's this great, like I spend my time working on my hobby and then my hobby helps my day job. So I mean, it's definitely a little bit rough, especially around the time that I was building out Bachelor Data Academy. It was a very rough month of like, there are students actually noticed in the course because you see my whole screen in the course, you could see the timestamp in the top right corner and it would say on some videos like 12:30 a.m. But we made it through and it's cool, especially to be able to have like a self-paced course that people can do at any time. And it's not something that's going to require a lot of time afterwards to continue to create the content around it. It's just to update it and make new videos to add to it. Yeah, it's exciting to see where it's going to go.
It's very fascinating. In defense of like in-person education and all that, I'm going to do stand-up comedy tonight in front of 12 people. So like I totally love the connection that you get in humanity and I don't have a classroom, but being on stage and all that. And it is different than what we do here on YouTube or Instagram and this and that. So, yeah, I think I got through all my questions there. I know I threw a lot at you here. I'm looking forward to seeing the growth of your channel. I guess I'll just say this. I noticed the growth in my channel when I started to talk to my audience about the growth in my channel, and I found that they were oddly invested in my channel's growth, not just Bachelor. Are you finding that your audience is invested in your growth, and will you cover your growth more?
I try to from time to time. I think the last time I did it was when I hit 50,000. But I think what I try to tell people is like, listen, we don't invest in marketing. We don't advertising, like none of that. The publicity that we get is just from people who share our account. So definitely this week when things really started to pick up, it was great to see so many people sharing the account so we could spread the word more. But yeah, I definitely see it too. Is whenever I report on it and talk about how it helps to share, I definitely see a lot of people rallying, it's really cool to see.
Now, once in a while, if say like there's a bunch of crabs on an episode, you'll get a request. Can't wait to see what Bachelor data says, how much screen time the crabs got. What's the most random request you've gotten? And are you getting any requests from contestants or Bachelor alumni?
I think the most random request was once I started to report on the crabs, somebody messaged me asking if I could do a specific analysis on a species of birds and how often they show it. And I was like, I don't even think I could entertain that because I don't think I can identify them.
Yeah, next, oh my God. I mean, yeah, hopefully one day you'll have a team of people being like, Becky, get on the birds. We need to know how often they were, I don't know, in the back, whatever. Yeah, that just complements how much people are interested in the content that you're putting together and putting out there. So people can find you at Bachelor Data on Instagram, and it's also at Bachelor Data on TikTok.
Yep, trying to go down that route too.
And also, I know you're not wanting to promote this, at Bachelor Data on Venmo. Go send Susanna here a coffee. Give her a coffee. Get her out there. I always try to push people. It's just what I notice is our audience is out there. Some of them have more money than they know what to do with, and they just want to fill up each other's tip jars there. And then also, tell me about the Academy. How can people find that?
Yeah, so it's closed right now, but actually, I think if this is dropping Friday, it's going to be open for a few days this week, just with the sheer amount of requests that are coming in. So Bachelor Data Academy, it's going to be promoted across a lot of my channels. It's just Bachelor Data at thinkific.com. And it's an academy that will take you a fully self-paced course. You'll own it indefinitely. Takes you from this is what a spreadsheet is all the way up to things like pivot tables and VLOOKUP and things that are so useful for you to do in your job. And it uses all of my own data. So I hope people enjoy it.
I've seen people comment that you've shared that their bosses are like surprised and excited. That's got to be so great to hear.
Oh, people are actually having their bosses write it off. And then we've actually had some requests for bulk purchasing within companies for people to learn with The Bachelor at work officially.
Amazing. There you have it, folks. You can do a tax write-off before the 2021 season. I'm not a CPA. Don't take my word for it. But anyway, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of that. Ask any questions, and don't forget to follow Susanna at Bachelor Data on Instagram. Hopefully we'll talk to her again soon. And you guys have a fantastic weekend. Bye, everybody.